Well, there you go. We're on working lunch. So good afternoon, everybody that either watches this live now or at some time of the recording in the future. I'm with Dave the coach today. Good morning, Dave. How you doing?
Good morning, or good afternoon now. It would technically
Oh,
be
it
good
is good
afternoon, wouldn't it?
afternoon. So it's good afternoon. It is. And we've got Mark Langston joining us. So I'm just going to bring Mark in. There's Mark.
Afternoon.
How you doing?
Hello.
Hi.
So, I can hear a background noise. Mark, I think you've got some sound on there somewhere.
Could be mine. I've been having trouble with my mic. I was in another meeting the other day and I was causing problems. The only way I can seem to get around it is to put the headphones on.
Okay.
Which is a bit of a pain.
All right. Yes. Yeah.
Does it seem to be coming from me?
Yes, it's coming from you. You can hear it. So if you could, that would be brilliant if you could do that. And then
It's only just started happening. And I thought it was a Teams meet, the other one, and just plug this in.
Plug in. Oh no, wait.
It's like live IT, isn't it?
Yeah. There you go. How's that?
Is that working?
I think so.
Oh, I can still hear it a little bit.
I can still hear you. Has it got speakers on?
No.
Yeah.
No.
There you go. I can hear you. I can hear me talking in the background.
Strange. Right, let's have a look at the.
So on your StreamYard settings, what you can do is go to audio and change the mic and speaker. If you change the speaker, you should change it to your headphones. That can work.
Yes, that will do it. This is when it goes really quiet.
Concentrating.
Yeah.
It's not just that, it's the echo. Whoa.
Oh, here you go. I've got echo cancellation on. Obviously not.
Have you got speakers? What's
I've got I've got the microphone, which is set. I wonder if I need to come out and reset that, perhaps.
Yes. If you look at mic, should be that on speaker. What does it say?
It says Realtek audio.
That's weird.
And that's the only option that it's sat at. So it's obviously still picking up the speaker on either on the laptop or the.
Are you hearing our audio through your headphones?
I think I'm. Say again.
Are you hearing our audio through the headphones?
I'm not actually. No.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Turn the speaker to your headphones.
Is that any better?
I don't know. No,
no different. So obviously it's not solving the problem with the headphones, is it? So,
well, if you have your mic setting, you can change your mic setting to the mic on your headphones, and the speaker setting can be to headphone jack or headphones.
Yeah.
I like a good IT session.
Well, for everybody that's actually watching this session right now. Oh, hang on a minute. You can't hear me now.
You're muted.
Oh, it's because it's muted, isn't it?
I'm just muting myself. So,
what's that? Hello. Oh, no, it's just muted. I just wondered. For everybody watching the session live at the minute, this is an IT session about how to fix background noise. This one we tell everybody what this support does.
Yeah.
Well, it's not this technology. It does web stuff.
Believe it or not. Right. I'm going to disappear and log back in.
All right. Okay. We'll see in a minute. What do you
like a bit of technical stuff. It is this. I mean, I've clicked the settings on mine and looked at how many different inputs and outputs I've got, and it's a list. It just goes on forever. Yes, how many things are connected to my computer?
Well, why don't we start, and then hopefully Mark will come back in and be all right. So, authenticity. We want to talk about authenticity, don't we? So, What is it about authenticity that made you say, you know what, Peter? Yes, I want to talk about authenticity. How do you view it? What do you see about it? What do you like? What don't you like? And what can people learn from it? Let's go from that.
I suppose the place I would start with this is to tell a story, obviously, because storytelling and all that stuff. So my background being A&E nursing and podiatry, I ran my own podiatry business, so foot and leg health business for 8 years. Worked for the NHS, did quite a lot of work in those arenas, and there are arenas which certainly in the NHS doesn't really allow you to be yourself. And that's quite a big statement because a lot of it's to do with the flexibility of the organisation. But I found when I ran my own business that it gave me an opportunity to be myself, but I didn't grasp it with both hands. And probably for the first 5 years of working in my business, the first 5 of 8, I was pushing being a professional because I thought that was what people wanted. They wanted the big bank of certificates on the wall, which told about all the qualifications and all the hours I'd done. And actually, it wasn't me. And certainly in my marketing, which was out there at the time, it would be shirts or short sleeve shirts. But when people came into clinic, they'd find a guy with tattoos on show, and not as many tattoos as I've got now. But there was a real incongruence with that. And because of that, you could see people kind of going, ooh, that's different to what I expected. And we got over that. But I realized one of the things I had to do was I had to reduce that incongruence. And I could either look more professional in clinic, or what I could do instead is I could actually look at my marketing and really work on being authentic in my marketing. And that's what I did because it was the easiest thing to do. But authenticity is it's a fascinating subject, and it's something which comes up all the time in the coaching work that I do, all the time. And if we look at authenticity from a very simple level, it's about being aligned with your values. And I know we talked about values a lot, and you've helped me with values, and yeah, but it's being aligned with your values and living through those values each day. It's about being able to get up and say, this is what's important to me, and this is how I interact with the world, and this is how I view the world. My values: love, learning, freedom, and fun, or playing around with variants of those. And I can trace it back to every point where I have changed jobs or left a career or moved to do something else is usually based on one of those values. Mostly it's fun. If it's not fun, I'm probably not going to do it. But there's other values which come to play there as well. There's another kind of side to authenticity, which is if you look at the work of people like Gabor Mate, where he talks about authenticity in children, and authenticity is around trusting your gut, but also being loved and being accepted. So it's quite a multifaceted thing. And I did a post yesterday on LinkedIn where I said that authenticity is a bit like a toddler. It's talked about in the same way that a toddler pulls off their nappy full of wee and swings it round. We talk about it and we display it to the world and go, be authentic, be yourself, be authentic, be yourself. And actually, it's really hard to do. It's something which is so difficult to do. Just someone saying do it, you can't do it. It's something you have to practice. It's something which you have to understand. It's something which you have to work on. And the values work is a big part of it. Being around the right people in the right communities is another part of it. Actually being honest with yourself about what it means to you as well, it is a big part of it. There's some really interesting research. When I started talking about this stuff more particularly on stage and talking about well-being, there was a very clear pattern which emerged in the research. And I work on 5 areas with the people I work with: authenticity, meaning, purpose, control and choice, community and connection, physiology and biology. So authenticity we've touched on so far, but meaning and purpose, what are you connected to? What's important to you on a bigger level? That could be spiritual. It could be, I'm doing this job because it earns me money so I can go paddleboarding on a weekend. It could be that it gives me the flexibility to spend time with my kids. What's the bigger thing that you're connected to? The control and choice is, do you have the opportunity to get up in the morning and say, I'm going to be doing this work with this people in this place by my rules? The community and connection is huge. I mean, loneliness is a massive thing at the moment. And we see how loneliness actually does reduce the quality of people's lives and the length of people's lives as well. So being part of a community and connected to people is really important, but equally being connected to yourself as well. And then physiology and biology. Getting your exercise, you're eating right, you're getting sleep, you're getting sunlight in the morning, all of those things. But when I looked at the research, there were 3 things which came up in the healthcare research: authenticity, meaning and purpose, control and choice. And it was a very clear link that when those 3 things are quite low down, so if you think about a graphic equalizer, they're quite low down, your well-being decreases. And when your well-being decreases, you increase stress and you increase the chance of burnout. So I looked at that and went, okay. And I looked at when I burnt out, had a breakdown in 2015, not long after I left the NHS. And I looked at what had led to me getting to that point. And really, it was quite clear that for me, the NHS wasn't able to provide me with authenticity. I wasn't allowed to be myself in quite the same way. I didn't have the meaning and purpose because I wasn't connected to the organization in quite the same way. And I really didn't have the control and choice over what I did. So with all of those in place, it was quite an easy step eventually to get to the point that actually these are the areas that need to be working on. And I still think authenticity is probably the biggest thing.
I think you're right. We've got a couple of people to add, by the way, so this is a good point to do it. I'll
bring them in.
Bring Graham Bayliss in. Hi, Graham. How the devil are you?
Well, that's all right.
Well, you're looking at me, Graham, but at least I've got you in, and I'm letting Mark in now as well, if Mark can come in, but to help have the conversation. But Mark's clearly having tech issues at the minute, by the looks of things. Whilst I wait for everyone to push the buttons, we'll just carry on, Dave. That's the thing to do. So I scribbled a few things down on authenticity, and these are just all the things you've just said. I totally agree with, 100% agree with. But I wrote these things down as well, which is, in terms of if you're speaking, it's being the same on stage as off stage. So it's the same, in forms of life. You're exactly the same person. I bumped into somebody last week in a car park, and for a minute I know they didn't recognise me because I got a baseball cap on, I got tack clothes on because of where I was going, But then they went, "Oh, it's you," and I went, "Yeah, it's me," and of course it's exactly the same. But the perception for a second was, hang on, and so long as you're the same, it's fine. If I'd suddenly changed into, I'm a Mr. Businessman speaker, but that doesn't work with me. It doesn't work with anybody. So being the same, no matter what you're doing, I wrote down clear, demonstrable values, which you've already started talking about. I think that you also need a track record of that, don't you? I think authenticity only really happens if you see somebody being authentic year after year after year. Would you agree?
No, absolutely. You need to have people who model it before you model it. Just the example popped in my head with that one. My youngest has just started senior school, and senior school for him brings emails and computer stuff. And one of the things I said to him is that, your teachers are going to send you emails at 9 o'clock at night. I think they shouldn't. I think they should schedule them for the next morning, because actually what the kids are doing is they're watching and they're seeing that these emails are coming out at 9 o'clock at night and thinking that's how they have to behave. And when you see authentic people speaking on stage, people who are truly being themselves, it gives you permission to do it. It gives you permission to actually go, you know what, I can embrace this. And I know when I started on my, the speaking journey, because we all have a journey, that I'm sure I do it now. I pretend to be, I do things which other people do on stage. It's like I see that and I go, well, that's really interesting. I'm going to try that. And then you integrate it into wherever you are. But you have to see other people do it first. And I mean, I'll call you on this one, Peter, that when I sit and have a coffee with you, and when I sit on Zoom and we have a chat, and when I see you speaking and see you in person, it's the same person. But I do see quite a few people who aren't the same person. But yeah, that evidence of it going before is cool. I've got quite a strong almost radar, I think, for people when they're not being more authentic, or when they're being transactional is probably the easiest way to do it. And when I see that incongruence between who they are in real life and what they're trying to be and what they're trying to achieve, I feel it. It's really, I find it really uncomfortable. So yeah, you have to have that evidence of it before. Graham's got his hat on now, which is good. I should salute now, shouldn't I? So,
Mr. Bayliss, good to see you.
Hello. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you absolutely
perfectly.
StreamYard doesn't work on Firefox at the moment very well.
Oh, right. Is that what the challenge
is? Plugin is. So I had to log out and log back in again using Chrome.
Yeah, it likes Chrome StreamYard. Yeah.
Yes, but it prefers it. It does work with.
It's a bug at the moment. They're working on it.
Yeah. Oh, there's obviously an issue in there. Tech. You know what tech's like. I'm just picking up, Dave, on what you were talking about there. Just as an aside for a second, but I think an important one. I totally get why teachers will send something out because they're working late at night to get stuff out for the kids.
Yeah.
But if that was in corporate land, I can remember vividly having a conversation with somebody. In fact, to just lay the story. I was asked to spend at short notice a day with some high flyers in London for an agency. And their average age was 25 or less. And this is going back to pre-COVID. And I was told that they really wanted to have all sorts of business stuff. And when I got there, what I found was they were all completely burned out. That was what the problem was. It wasn't anything to do with anything else. And then I started asking one of the people there, and they said, well, the thing is, I'm answering emails at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I said, well, why are you doing that? And in fact, she said, I'm answering them sitting on the toilet. And I said, what the heck are you doing answering? Well, what the heck are you doing answering emails on the toilet? Anyway, but that's another one, But the key for me was that she was looking. And it's because her boss was sending her emails at 2 o'clock in the morning. And the school needs to think about that, because you're right, the kids are totally switched in. They will look. Mark has got the problem.
I don't know. Is it still an echo?
Yeah,
there is at the moment. Yeah.
Ah.
If you mute yourself for the moment, then we don't get the feedback on it.
Yeah. I'm just going to turn the volume down.
Try that.
Let's see. Is that any better?
No, still hear you in the back. Just try muting now.
Okay.
How's that? There you go. That's it. Thanks, Mark. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting with in the modern world, we've got all these tools to make our lives easier, and I've got no problem if someone wants to work at 9 o'clock at night, no problem at all. But as long as it's their choice. But if they're modeling that for other people, and they think that's the only way that they you get to progress to that point, then it seems to be a bit. So I've chatted to him about it, and just kind of said just kind of watch out for that a little bit. But it's really interesting, the whole modeling thing, and that modeling around authenticity. When I see people who are being themselves, unapologetically, unashamedly, and it's not about not caring what other people think, but it's just being very clear as to who you are. And one of the big things I talk about with clients is energy. It's all about energy. That if you are trying to be someone else, it takes a whole host of energy. I mean, Graham's got his hat on at the moment, and he's general disarray. But actually, it doesn't take a lot of energy for you to be general disarray. No, it's very much in line with who you are. That's the beautiful thing. But I see so many people who are trying to be someone else, and it takes so much energy. And actually, I haven't got infinite energy to pretend to be someone else. I can only be me. It's taken me a lot of years to get there.
I've noticed it a lot in recent times. I was looking up to speak at an FSB boot camp last week over in Shropshire. So there's about 100 people or so there, and had a lovely time speaking there, meeting some smashing people. And the people who are enjoying themselves the most, and I would think because they were hopefully seeing the sort of business that they want, was because they were being themselves. I did meet a handful of people that I have to say I thought were going through some motions, etc. But that's not a criticism of the FSB or the area or whatever. I see that wherever I go, you will see some people who are trying to be something they're not, and therefore, especially in the speaking game, when you see speakers in their earlier days, they're trying on hats. Graham, actually, they're trying on different speakers they've seen hats. Because they've said, "Oh, look how good they are! I want to be a bit like them," and it don't work, and it won't work because you're not being you. You're not being you. You're not being authentic. People understand. Will pick up on it, even if they don't say, "Oh, they're not being authentic." They just pick up on it, and they don't feel right with it. Don't feel
you feel it before you know what it is, and yeah, we have to experiment with different things. You have to find your style. I think a lot of this is about iteration and doing it more and more. You want to be a better speaker. What do? You have to speak. You have to go out there and try something and it not be very successful. You have to, if we talk about the stand-up comedy world, you have to go out and bomb. You have to find an audience which doesn't gel with you at all, and you just have to you have to weather it and learn from it. I learn a little bit from every speaker that I watch, but now I learn almost things that I don't want to do. It's like, right, no, I don't need to do that. That's fine. And there's a bit more confidence now. I'm not saying that I am the world's best speaker, because that would be hugely arrogant, but I've certainly got better this year, and I've really focused on it and pushed it. But I've really focused on the fact that it being me is really important.
Yeah, and certainly seeing you speak of late, you're certainly in your own zone now, which is what you need to be. Absolutely. But it's the same. Whatever it is. We're talking about speaking just for now, but it's the same in business. Full stop. Mark, you clearly got a problem with the sound in the background, so I would normally bring you into it, but for now, we'll see how we go. I know you're pressing buttons at the minute, so we'll see how we go. But
I'm just trying a few things to see whether it's sort of helps. But I'm obviously going to have to do some work afterwards to work out.
Actually, Mark, quick question for you. What browser do you want?
Firefox.
Have you got Chrome?
Graham has just told us that there is a bug on Firefox at the minute. You need to come back in on Chrome.
Right. So that's easy enough then. Okay. Because I've usually got Chrome open as well. So
come out. Fire up Chrome. Come back in.
Good point. Okay. Thank you. See you later.
See you in a bit.
Graham, you're a superstar, mate. You see, the world, everything we need to know about the world, we just ask Graham Bayliss. That's all we've got to do, really, haven't we? Don't you think? It's either ask Graham Bayliss or we ask Dave Bird, one or the other. What do you think?
Dave Bird.
There you go. So, where were we? Dave, I don't know if you heard anything beforehand, etc., but Mark, bless him, has just been having fun with tech, because Firefox has got a problem, and Firefox is playing up apparently at the minute. So, anyway, we're talking about authenticity. We're talking about people actually being the same, on a day-to-day basis in terms of their business. You've certainly found that, Graham, in your career, haven't you?
Oh, no doubt about it. And in my field, I think it's one of those where authenticity and honesty are just so crucial, because there's so many rogues there. Essentially, to rogues in the SEO industry must equal that into the second-hand car dealerships. There's an awful lot, and estate agents perhaps, of rogues in it, and it's very important to make sure that people trust you before you can move any further. I only came in last week. I was on a Zoom thing, and it was interesting because afterwards I had a one-to-one. When we were on, the lady was saying that I could immediately understand and trust you from how you were reacting, how you answered the questions, because she honestly said to me, I tried to trip you up. I asked you some questions. I was expecting the normal SH1T answer, and you came back with the with the proper one, because she had enough SEO experience to understand what was good and what was bad. And she was expecting me to be, the normal sort of reply. And she said, if you'd have said that, I'd have called you out in the room. And I said, well, fair enough. I'm quite happy with the fact that you would have called me out, but in the end, she didn't have to. And she just, immediately gelled with me. I'm not saying everyone does that, but I have a pretty high gel effect, I would call it, whether I'm wearing my hat or not. But being authentic and being honest and just saying things how they are rather than how you think what people want to hear is the other thing, which is the reason I'd never be a politician, because I'd be telling them exactly what it was like, and
that's
no
why you should be one.
No politician does it, does it? But that's I wouldn't last 5 minutes, because I'll be honest, and you can't have an honest politician. The two words don't go together, do they? For very good reasons. But it's impossible to be honest as a politician because, as soon as you tell people exactly how they are, they wait for someone else who can tell them back a load. So, but yeah, I think, when it comes to business, very important to be authentic and honest. Those two words go together in my view.
It's interesting that, I'm thinking about times where maybe you would not necessarily dial back on your authenticity, but dial back on the intensity. And the author Brené Brown writes about vulnerability, and certainly in the work I do as a coach, that there's an element of vulnerability which is really important. Being able to kind of say, this is what's going on for me, and being open and honest about it. There are times where that would not be appropriate. And Brené Brown also talks about people have to earn the right to hear your story. Social media makes that a little bit more different because you're broadcasting something which could be quite personal. I have skeletons in my closet, but my closet doesn't have any doors, and I'm kind of happy to talk about most things. But you're broadcasting that to a group of people who haven't really earned the right to hear that story. I think there are areas where probably you have to be careful, and it'd be places like healthcare. There are, you can't share everything to everyone when you're working in a healthcare situation, or areas where maybe there's a very high level of professionalism, law and things like that. And there will be personas which people play, but at the same time, I think there's a real benefit in being able to find out where that line sits. Like you say about politicians, I would love to have honest politicians. Politicians who turn around and say, you voted for us to do this, we messed it up, being polite, but we'll do everything we can to help it. And you only have to look at what any government does at the moment. They make promises. They make promises to get people to vote for them, and then they don't deliver, and then they make excuses about why they don't deliver. And eventually, over a 12 to 15-year cycle, another government comes in and the same thing happens. But just having people tell it as it is, even things like business names. I love business names like beauticians. They'll have all these fancy names when really what they're trying to say is you don't look too good. Pay us a bit of money, we'll make you look a little bit better. If you had that as a business name, it just being totally honest, it would make life a whole lot easier because you wouldn't have to waste energy trying to work out what they're trying to do. So I think there's a fine line, definitely. My industry, coaching, can be properly authentic. I think other industries, you probably have to think about it a little bit, but you find out where the line is.
I think it also depends upon, whether you would do good in another profession. As I said, I would make a bad politician because of those reasons. And I would certainly in other areas would fail as well because my personality doesn't match that profession.
Absolutely.
And I think that's another thing. If you're in a profession where you can't be yourself, then perhaps you're in the wrong profession, because every day you're forcing yourself to be this other image to the world. And I would say that's going to take an awful lot of stress on you, So I think it's important to be in a job where your personality and beliefs and everything match that. And I certainly would. I failed totally as a salesman. I when I was in the, and I still do, by the way. But when I was in the, when I was early 20s, I tried to sell newspaper space in Birkenhead in Liverpool. I sailed through the interview. I was 3 out of 3,000. Applied. I was only 3 out of 3,000 that applied. I don't know how many got to the interview stage, but I got a job, and I was crap at it because I just couldn't manipulate people. In the sales process as far as buying newspaper was concerned, and I still totally will not manipulate people. Like I know, like Dave Bird's an NLP expert, and I know he says NLP isn't about manipulating people, but I won't even go there in the first place. You know what I mean? I just simply say, this is what I do. Are you interested in it? Yes, no. Basically, in the end of the day, and don't start to try to talk them around. Say, well, you really should be interested because X, Y, and Z. And even though it's in their best interest in many cases, I still won't try it because I just don't want to do that because it's not me, And so I would be hopeless as a salesperson just selling, and I therefore would never do it again because I tried and failed.
It is interesting with the aligning your energy and aligning your values to the work that you're in. And my background in healthcare, I saw the NHS change quite drastically over the time I was in it, and it wasn't the NHS I went into. You know, I went in there too, very cheesily, to care for people because that's what I do. But the organisation went from being one which was about caring to being one which is about targets and money and it. You know, I know the NHS as it stands at the moment. There's a big discussion on that one. Is can it stay? Can it actually stay in its current form for the next 10 years? No. But you know, there's so many layers which have been put on there which go away from its initial idea of what it does.
I want to tell a story about that, Dave. You about NHS and targets. Back in 15 years ago, I got through a very intense bit of change in my life, and I ended up having 2 stress headaches that put me in hospital, put me in A&E. You know, my blood pressure was 220 over 110. I was stupid. It blew it in, you know, and stuck in. And I was opposite the desk where all the nurses sit, and I was conscious. I was you know, it was like, you know, yay with I was on the pills, you know, but I was totally conscious. And every 10 seconds there was a lady on the phone saying you know, we're going to go into a breach with this one. If you don't do it quickly, all the time. Yeah. I thought, hang on, there's an awful lot of funny bursts going on here, until it suddenly got my line that this was about breaching times, you know. And they spend so much, and it was proof they spend so much time monitoring themselves to get things done that they're not doing things anymore, you know, because you've got all these targets, and teachers are the same, because my sisters, they got out of teaching when they're still the new, all this plan and all these tick boxes. Seem to be mad on monitoring, you know, that's a good phrase, to a degree in the NHS and education. So busy that they're not actually getting the work done. So I totally agree with you, Dave. Yeah. Madness.
The breaching was interesting because that came in when I was working in A&E from 2001 to 2004. We actually had spreadsheets and everything which looked at breaching, and the idea was that 95% of your patients would be seen, treated, and discharged or moved to a ward within 4 hours. And actually, I don't have a problem with that, because actually there's a lot of things you can sort out quickly, but without the resources to make that so, if we're going down a Star Trek quote route, then it doesn't happen. And it was measured. It was measured once a year. And the week it was measured, you could guarantee you had all the staff and all the resources you need, because to show that you were failing was not a good thing, and you get fined on it. So they throw everything at it for 1 week out of the year. The other 51, it was like, you get on with it. But it's that element of, does it compromise care? And I think in some cases it does, because you're not thinking about what's the best for this individual. You're thinking about what's the best to stop us from looking bad. And there's a real sweet spot between the two. But I think it was 98% then as well. But that, you know, you can't be authentic in that environment if you are having to serve different masters, when actually the master you should be serving is the patient in front of you.
But both sides are being neither are being authentic. That's what it boils down to. Because the set of rules are being set, the staff are playing a game because they have to. Because they see no alternative. So they're not being authentic. They know they're not being authentic, and that comes across to the patients. It's exactly the same thing in a corporate environment. You see that. It was why I left corporate 28 years ago now, because people couldn't be, you know, in some, I'm a bit careful. There are some great corporate organizations, all right? But so many struggle because the authenticity of the difference between what a main board's trying to do, the shareholders are trying to do, and the staff themselves at different levels have all got different things going on, and there's no authenticity between them, and that comes across when you're a client of them. And so, you know, you end up being on the end of press button 1, press button 7. Your call's very important to us. You're number 27 in the queue, etc., etc., etc. Because that culturally, it's not being authentic. Now, I'm biased. I think many family businesses are authentic because of the fact they're values based. That some aren't. Some are terrible. They're awful. But far more are decent because of the fact of one of the key things that you said at the start of the recording, just before you came on, Dave, and Mark, while you're having problems, was that values plays a huge part in authenticity. You know, so you know, Dave, Mark, welcome back.
I didn't speak now.
Right, I can't hear me in the background now.
Oh, it's working.
It's working.
Amazing. So, yeah, it wasn't my tech after all. It was down to the browsers. Unbelievable, isn't it? You know.
And Dave, welcome. We finally got to say hello properly. What about your thoughts, either of you, Dave or Mark, whichever one to go first?
I've just posted I didn't know this was a topic today, but I've just posted a video because I'm doing, you know, a video series on LinkedIn where I'm videoing almost every day, really.
Yes,
and and today's is a kind of damaging admission one, because I've got my dad's old car, which is a Vauxhall Corsa 1.2, slow as hell. But you know what I'm trying to do is make a point that I value the environment higher, and that thing is fuel efficient, and I only use it, you know, when I have to use it. And I've kind of used that to talk about my environmental ethics, the fact that, you know, I've got a train station 5 minutes walk away if clients want to come on the train to visit me, and try to turn a damaging admission, you know, into something positive. And I think in a lot of the stuff I put out there, I could look for, you know, if you go on some of these very kind of topics that talk about how to do video marketing, they'll say, look for trending topics, look for trending music and all that kind of stuff. I think it's fair to say I do the exact opposite. You know, I am quite quirky, and I put my hands up to that. And I have got a few narrow passions rather than being interested in everything. And I play on that. And here's the thing, you know, if people like that, then they'll follow me. A lot of people won't. They'll think my stuff is, you know, not for them, and that's fine.
Well, I'm pleased. Sorry, I'm pleased that you admitted you got a Vauxhall. I mean, now I see you in a totally different light. So,
it's, you know, it is so amusing when people talk about cars at these networking things, and I can just about understand the different brands, like the difference between a sort of Golf and a Ferrari or something, but that's about where it ends. You know, I'm just.
It's all right. It's all right, Dave. I'll just interpret it for you. It's fine. Don't worry. As a petrol head, it's quite easy for me to do it. By the way, there's nothing wrong with a Corsa. Most of the kids these days start with a Corsa,
right?
And some of them never change from it. You know, our daughter Sarah Beth, she had 3 of them, I think. Courses, you know, it's always for a course.
Well, you would think so, but this is an honest, this is a genuine thing. I was told at one of these networking events, I was actually told, and the guy was completely serious. He was saying in future, I would park your car around the corner because it might affect your reputation. that was, I will say, the networking group, it was 4N about, you know, 5 or 6 years ago. And he was thinking that if people saw that car, because I think it was the same car, you know, in the car park, they would think less of me as a business owner, which I found absolutely staggering. You know,
I'm not surprised that somebody would spout that thought process. I think there'd be a difference if the car was completely covered in stuff, mud, whatever you like to call it, and was terribly looked after. If the car was relatively clean and tidy, you would just say, you know what, that's what they run. So what? If you're in an industry that it's all about glamour, I don't know, catwalk or something, it might be a bit different. You might have to look different. But I think the first thing you need to be is honest and straightforward. You know, you know, I'm a known petrol head, but I drive a 3-year-old Skoda, and it's a great car. Why would I want to change it?
But the implication was that, you know, I didn't have any kind of investment. Yet the irony is, one of my 2 of my cameras are worth way more than that car.
Well, one of your cameras is probably worth more than the car.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think there's only one that is. I've got 3 cameras at the moment, and only one. In fact, that actually, I think even that one is about the same value. So,
I think what you need to do, Dave, is you need to work on a really good comeback for them. And I mean, I've got loads of ideas. I'm not sure I can say any of them on this call. But I mean, but it might be as simple as, I really appreciate your advice, but you might need to look for some very particular hats which are going to cover that penis on your forehead. So anything you can do. But I mean, I turn up at networking events looking like this, if you've seen, and I've tried turning up in nice outfits, and it's like I just feel really uncomfortable. I walk around literally, it's like I've got pants up the crack of my bum, and it's just.
Well, luckily we've got, because you do video as well, we've got a bit of a creatives license, so I've never ever turned up in anything smart, but I do get away with it through what I do, really.
Because your work is superb, and the people you work with appreciate what's important, which is your personality, your work. Whichever order you want it in. That's the important thing. And actually, I think a lot of it, I'm going to use big words like pre-qualifying. If I want people to make a decision about whether they want to have a conversation with me beforehand, I don't want them to waste their time. I don't want them to waste my time. And as I said at an event I was speaking at a couple of weeks ago, I said 50% of you will think I'm a bit of a dick and you don't want to have a conversation with me. And 50% of you be like, actually, he seems all right. I might chat to him later. And that's perfectly fine. So, yeah. I like it. I think authenticity for me is about embracing that, because if you've got to go around in a nice suit and a beautiful Mercedes to try and impress people who you really don't care about, you're just trying to sell to them.
You're still not going to probably impress 50% of the audience anyway. If people don't like Mercedes or don't like you being in a smart car, thinking, well, if he's running a smart car like that, then he's going to charge me the earth for his services. Then so it works both ways, doesn't it?
The phrase, Mark, that those the people that mind don't matter.
Yeah.
And
yes. What car do you drive, Mark? Sorry, I was just.
Oh, well, interestingly, I drive a 3-year-old Skoda like Peter. It's brilliant.
I say to everyone, it doesn't matter that my car's old. It was the last owner was Moses, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah, but you didn't have to drive it into your local lake to see if it would part the water, did you? Really?
just something to sort of throw in. I was thinking, I've listened I came in halfway through, but I've sort of gathered what's sort of happening and what we're talking about, and authenticity, and I absolutely agree with that. And I've sort of lived by that, throughout my working career, which has had different guises, from corporate through to own business now. And I've been in marketing as well. There's something that you always, you learn right from the beginning, and it's something that's built in and you always think about, is to think about your audience. So yes, be authentic, but you still got to have in mind who you're speaking to. And interestingly, is a good something that came up at the weekend. We're sort of sat around the table, this group of us, and one of the guys, he's a manager, and he was talking to one of his staff, and he said, and this is sort of an extreme really, but it sort of says that you have to think about who you're talking to, and he said, "Oh, I can't remember the exact words, but something like, be my slave and make me a cup of tea." Like you do, off the cuff comment, absolutely no malice or anything in it. But his particular slave was black. And she actually took offense to that. She said, "Don't call me a slave. You can call me a servant, but don't call me a slave." And he said, "That interesting. Okay." He'd learned something from that, and he said, "Well, it just shows you've got to just think about who you're talking to at the time and not cause offense, because it can cause offense to some people." And another example of that, actually, we went to the Cheltenham Lit Fest the weekend, and we saw Aid Edmondson from the Young Ones. And of course, he was doing his Young Ones bit in places. He started off quite sort of mild, and he was talking about Rick Mail, and one of his sentences, it was sort of he was talking about swearing, and he said at the time, to bring swearing into the television and to say fuck and other things was quite, this is a bit out there, can't do this at that time. It means nothing now, doesn't it? Everybody uses it. So he did a complete sentence of you know, a bit like what was the one with Hugh Grant in, where he sort of the first sentence is he wakes up and it's fuck. So he did all that. And he did a massive long sentence, full sentence.
Four weddings.
Yeah, and that's right. Yes, you're right. It was, wasn't it? And actually, a couple of people walked out. Don't know whether it was because when he started to use, some swear words, and he did use the C word once as well. And there were probably 3 or 4 people that got up and walked out. When they went to the toilet, I didn't see him come back. And I just went again. That's sort of he'd obviously potentially alienated, a very, very small portion of the audience. Everybody else was laughing, but it just using that as an example. As to you probably need to just be careful sometimes and think about your audience.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah,
because I think Peter and I are old enough to remember when political correctness wasn't even on the agenda, and you could say what you liked, and but nowadays you have to be so careful, even addressing people. You don't know whether they're a Ms or an it, or one doesn't have a name on. And I'd hate to be in HR at the moment because of all these the rights to be what you want to be. But I must admit, I find it very hard to be politically correct. But I'm lucky that I don't swear. I've probably ever used the F word about 5 times in my life because it just doesn't gel well with me as a person. It's not a word that lives in my brain. When it does, I find, what are you doing here? You don't belong, kick it out, sort of thing. But political correctness is so hard, and you could really upset someone that could be a customer just by being politically incorrect if they're sensitive enough. And so many people these days are sensitive enough, they're just waiting to be offended, in my opinion, most of them. It's almost like a referee looking for ways of not giving a goal or a try if you're England at the weekend. There's always reasons not to give it, and they're looking for those reasons. They're looking to be offended. So steering a course where you don't offend people whilst being authentic can be very difficult. So I totally agree with Mark. Very difficult, because that chap was being authentic. That was him, wasn't it? And yet he offended people. So doing both is hard.
Because Dave's very brave, I think, because, Dave doesn't hide his authenticity and all his amazing social media posts. And you do what I thought would get you banned from LinkedIn. You actually, put swear words in the descriptions and things. But, it comes over well and everything, doesn't it? So sometimes you just got to make a judgment.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the use of swear words, I still hold back a little bit, because even then, a lot of what goes on with the algorithm is not human controlled. A lot of what goes on with the algorithm is AI and computer controlled. And yeah, I what I try and do is I try and use, if you have a conversation with me, I try and use language which I would use. It's like the one I put in a post yesterday about authenticity is a bit like a toddler pulling its nappy off and full of wee and swinging it around its head. It's used or thrown around like a wet tea towel. I'll use language which I'll probably have in a conversation generally. Do I swear? Yes. Do I swear like a navvy? Probably not. Do I use certain words? Yes. But I think it's knowing whether I'm talking to my grandmother or whether I'm talking to my daughter or whether I'm talking to a partner. And there'll be that at different times. If I walked into a networking room and swore like I did with a partner or with maybe with my daughter, it would be very different. I think it is the appropriateness of it, and I think sometimes you have to test the boundaries.
I think the other thing is that the swearing is a form of shock, isn't it? That people will know. So the ways of shocking in an audience are great for dragging attention. Like, that's one of the reasons why I dress up like this, because when I stand up on a 60 seconds, everyone just, what the hell's this sort of thing before I even open my mouth. And it's coming up with different ways of breaking the especially in networking, the drivel 60 seconds that have been on for everyone's falling asleep, because most 60 seconds are totally awful. The person's not speaking loud enough to hear them. They're not saying anything you want to hear. You're bored to death. Guess I get on with the next one. And so many 60 seconds don't even. I'm there cringing. I'm thinking, come on, you can do better than that. I could do better than that. You could do better than that. So the shocking effect of saying something that is potentially slightly rude or certainly contentious is really good for people to draw attention to yourself, as long as afterwards the attention that you gain is the right type. But I don't know how many people you think about me as a bloody idiot for going around dressed as a pretend general. There will be a percentage that think he's a twit, and I accept that. I accept that because I'm a twit. I'm quite happily kept be called a twit. I like being a twit. It's fun. So there is you've always got that, but something's a shock. I think it's a great way of drawing attention to yourself.
Well, it's a pattern interrupt. It's pattern interrupt, and it's memorable. And if you look at any of the literature around how you create memory, particularly there's a book called Moonwalking with Einstein, which is about the World Memory Championships. He uses a memory palace in order to remember decks of cards, and he said basically you just remember the rudest thing you possibly can, and you'll always remember it. But it's interesting you talk about going around portraying it. I spent quite a lot of time networking, pretending I was a proper businessman, and it didn't work. So I just do things differently instead. But yeah, I think there's a real fine line. I do like when it comes to 60 seconds. I like to call things as they are. And probably one of my favourite ones is either getting up in a room and put my hand up and going, anyone else here not thought of something to say for 60 seconds? And you see people kind of want to put their arms up because they haven't, or saying, if I'm in the middle, it's like, right, this half of the room here isn't listening to a word I say because they've done their 60 seconds and they're relaxing and enjoying their tea. This group over here are worried about what they're going to say for 60 seconds. So they're not they're not listening to me, which means I can say anything I want. And you play with it. There's all these things which are in plain sight, but we cover them over with all these layers because we don't want people to think badly of us, or we want people to think a particular way, or we're trying to get a particular response. And actually, if we shift that out of the way and just have fun with it, it's, what's everyone at a networking event for? Well, I'm there for the free coffee, obviously. No, I'm there looking for people who potentially might work with me. But we mix it up in all of this kind of language, and I'm here to provide a service for you. Let me ask you questions about your business, which are leading you to a point. It's like, can't we just get rid of that? Just talk about things like real people.
Easier said than done, though, Dave.
It is. All of this authenticity is it's a very simple word, but it's like anything. It's simple, but it's not easy. And you have to go back. You have to go back to the basics. This is the Apollo Delphi thing, and scripted above the Apollo Delphi is the phrase "Know thyself." That's where it starts from. Know yourself.
I think, and it's different for people in that you start your own business. As I said earlier, I've been involved in running my own business for 28 years. Most of you have been running a business in some form or another for a good while now. And it takes time to feel comfortable in your skin to actually talk about what it is that you want to talk about with, and whether you want to share that through, a 60 seconds that actually would be interesting and not, boring the pants off everybody, or when you're dealing with people, you're one-to-oneing with them, whatever it is. It's about just being yourself, and dressing accordingly, speaking accordingly. I think with some openness that, yes, you might need to tone down a bit for some people, then other people might be happier to be more of a certain style, certain way. And you use your loaf with that. But I think the key thing is right back to the start of what we talked about with authenticity. It is all about being yourself. And I think there comes a point in your life where you kind of say, do you know what, this is me and this is what I am. And you either like it or you don't. And if you don't, I'm sorry that's not the case. But you know what? Move on. Next. And I think, yes, Graham, as we are of a similar age, there is no doubt that we've seen such a change in the way people look at things with political correctness, etc. My daughters definitely say, Dad, you can't say that. And I'll say, why not? And then they'll explain why. And sometimes I think, you've got a really good point there. Mark, for instance, what you just raised earlier on, that would be a really good point not to do that again. Absolutely. And there are others where I'm thinking, do you know what? I don't agree, and I'm going to keep running with what I'm doing. Sorry. And that's where the authenticity comes in. And that line's going to move, and it will continue to move, I think. But I think what you mustn't do is just be afraid of your own shadow. You know, it's you are what you are, and you stand for what you stand for. All of you are great with the businesses that you've got. You're very good at what you do. You're experienced in what you do. And if you're getting to a point where you're having to apologize for yourself because you think it's not right for some reason, that's not being authentic. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. And so all it'll do is hurt you. All it'll do is hurt you. So what's the point? You know, run with what's right for you. And to me, that makes the most sense.
And being around with people who support you in that.
Yeah.
I think that there's for me the stages of this that you're never going to turn around and be totally authentic off the bat in an area which doesn't suit you, because it takes a lot of confidence to do that. But if you can build on that authenticity with a group of people, and I'm looking around the screen here, and this is a perfectly comfortable place for me to be authentic. I can be even more authentic here. And you find those communities and those tribes which suit you, because then you can practice that. Yeah. And then you can take that out into the world. And no names of particular networking groups being mentioned, but we all know who they are. You can then go and take it to those places and stand out. So it's you build up over time. It's like practicing an instrument or learning to drive or whatever it is.
I'm conscious we're coming up to the end of 60 minutes, believe it or not. I'm going to put this one on here. That's the next one that's on. Next time, I put Huddle there. It shouldn't be Huddle. I should have.
Was that Huddle or Huddle?
I didn't spell it right. I'm going to change it, guys. The next working lunch.
I mean, who doesn't want a nice huddle with Nicholas Lee? Eh? I mean, he's the master of huddles.
I'm going to push that button, and now I'm going to put that. There you go. That's what I should have pushed. Yeah. So the next working lunch is with Nicholas. It's going to be talking about money, but in a way that only Nicholas can. A very, very different way of talking about money compared with most people, I think you'll find.
Very authentically.
Very authentically. And he's been on a journey with that over the years by his own admission. And, of course, his journey of walking 1,000 miles, which I know he's doing very well, and sponsorship still going in for. So looking forward to the update of that. Our huddle, which is what I was thinking of at the same time, is in a few days after that. That one's over in Shirley this time. If you or anybody watching and listening to this can get to the huddle sponsored by our business loans, guaranteed to meet some different people, if that's your bag, if that's your one, plus meeting some people that you already know as well. Huddles work very, very well because it's 2.5 hours and we do a lot in that time. So looking forward to that. All our other events are now up and running until the end of the year. I'm working on some new stuff for 2024, as you'd imagine I would be doing, which will be great. So look forward to those. Shout as ever if you want us to do anything different. But for now, I think, first thing, round of applause for Dave for a great presentation. All right. Which is great. Great to see you all. Those of you that are watching this, hope you've found it useful. And I hope you take some of it away. I think the most important thing for me is just be yourself, eh? Just be yourself. That's what authenticity is really all about. Thanks to everybody. I'm just going to push the end of the live stream right now. I'll say goodbye to everybody in the studio afterwards. But thanks for watching the recording.